Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of Succession Season 4, Episode 7, Tailgate Party. Before I jump into this review, I just want to thank everybody. I finally hit that 30K sub mark, so I really appreciate all you guys. People have been with me for a while, and new people here joining through Succession. I'm glad we've got to bond, and I'm really enjoying talking with the Succession fan base about this show. You guys give great comments in particular. So let's jump into this episode. It's strange because we had this very happy moment between Tom and Shiv where they're straight with each other last episode, but it ended on a more understanding note, and that's why we see they're bonding at the beginning of this episode. But that goes sour fast, and it starts with Tom giving Shiv a gift of a scorpion totem, which was just a bad idea. And as we see, they reference it as is like, he kills her, that scorpion, how she finds that offensive. It also, to me, was symbolic of just the character of Shiv, right? Where Scorpion really symbolic of something that is patiently waiting to strike at that moment. And that's what happens here with Shiv. She is a patient player in all this, and she's about to make her big move here, betraying her own family to side with Matsson and help Matsson out, and she's playing her family throughout this episode. But Shiv, again, never really wins here, and she gets screwed over when she gets information about Matsson with the India information that she might have sided with the wrong side here, the weaker side. Now, before we get more into the Shiv stuff, I want to get into some Kendall stuff here. They kind of shoehorned some scenes in this episode in for me that just didn't really land, especially with Kendall seeing his ex-wife, Rava. The show does this thing where, I always say this, but it just frustrates me with Succession. They always do this where they throw in a character you haven't seen in ages, and they kind of give you a little information about it, like the situation where his daughter Sophie is getting racially attacked here, and it puts him in a weird spot because the person who attacked her is wearing a Ravenhead shirt who's an anchor on ATN, and you see that the good side, supportive side of his daughter is the anti-ATN, which happens to be the company her dad owns. So it's complex for her, it's complex for him. And she's like, Kendall, why are you yelling at me? Rava's saying, why don't you call your daughter? Which is a good point, right? People are wondering, like, where's his family been all this? Has he been touching base with them? I feel like that's just touching base a little bit, and they're going to ditch that, right? It's not going to be this big story. They do this in the show a lot, where little things they make, like, they have big impact. Like, people were saying in my review last week that, oh, Kendall's going to get in huge trouble for phoning those numbers about Living Plus, and you know what? Nothing ever really happens. It's the same thing with early in the season, they had the big cliffhanger where Kendall is not telling Roman that he's behind the scenes having Hugo make their dad put him in a bad light. Well, what was the reaction of Roman to that? What did Roman think of that happening? We don't know. They don't show us. It gets muted down. They do that so much in the show, and it can get very frustrating. Same thing here where they're talking about Marsha, and they're doing this funeral planning committee, and they're like, oh, we're going to carry Marsha, meaning just push her out completely with all her demands and wishes. So are we ever going to really see Marsha again? Is she just going to become an afterthought too? Because she had this big episode with the wake and we haven't seen her since. It's bizarre. I just think people have a lot of faith that they're going to do this, but when have they given us payoff before with these little storylines, little characters introduced, and they just disappear, and they bring them when they conveniently need them. Like that happens here with Nate. Nate, to me, felt like the Stewie and Sandy character again, where, oh yeah, remember Nate? And you got to kind of look up stuff like, wait, when was the last time we saw Nate? And what does he exactly do? And the whole regulatory storyline here, and then wanting to bring him in. This is where it gets too talky, too, and too businessy, where it's like, help a TV viewer just understand in like layman's terms, what is really happening? What is this regulatory thing? It gets a lot. It's a lot. It's interesting, but at the same time, it's not really that interesting either. You kind of just got to look at it at its base value that this is Ken and Rome using this as the backup plan to get Madison out of this deal just in case the original plan with pushing him out money-wise doesn't work. And it makes things more interesting because it's Nate, right? The fling he had with Shiv, and Tom's going to be there. He's going to Tom's house, so he's not going to like that. It adds more drama, I get it, but just feels a lot of just forced in. And I'm ranting here, but man, something's frustrating me here because even the Mencken stuff, we don't even see Mencken again. I'm sure we're going to see him in the election episode next week, but he seems like an afterthought. We had a whole episode last season where they picked the president, which to me, the weakest storyline in Succession ever is everything going on with presidency and Connor running for president. It's goofy. It's not, it's more grounded material, and I just don't really care. And the reason Roman is really going through with what Mencken wants him to do to get rid of Connor out of the competition because it's hurting their poll numbers is because he says it's not bad for us to be tight with him in case things swing our way. And then Roman will go and offer Connor not great positions, not safe countries. And this is setting up where Jerry finally gets her mic drop on Roman and basically says, I'm out and I want millions of dollars, like a ridiculous amount of money, and blackmails him where I'm going to squeal about these photos. It's a great moment for Jerry. I think everyone's been waiting for. And this sets Roman off, and he really then goes and is a huge a-hole to his brother Connor here, saying that everyone thinks he's a joke here at this party. And then Connor has the best line to me of the episode, and to Roman that he needed to hear is like, well, I'm going to listen to the one person who doesn't think I'm a joke, which is Willa. I thought that was a great moment for Connor. I also think they're setting up, knowing now that Roman's going to be one speaking at the funeral, and we know it hinted that Connor wanted to. He says this, that Connor's going to put down Roman some way and give him a taste of his medicine at this funeral, which is probably episode 9. So that should be interesting. I also want to say the best humorous line this episode to me was actually Willa saying to Connor, running people over is not a selling point about these locations. He's saying to her, I thought that was great. Now we see Shiv has to basically be the PR manager for Matsson here and babysit him, and is playing both sides and is giving Matsson all the information here about what Ken and Roman's plan is with Nate, and that's why she wants Matsson at the party. Now, where stuff gets dicey with Tom and Shiv is Tom is getting humiliated in his own home. Rumors about him being let go, and Shiv's not really standing up for him anywhere, and is more concerned about making sure the play with Madison's working. So this is where the gossiping is going to start. And we see through this, Kendall's trying to use this play with Nate, pitching to him. Nate's not biting, and he's like, I'm not Gil, you're not Logan. But it actually makes it so much more interesting this fell through because of the big play here by Ken, who lets Frank know this India info that came out about Matsson and his fake subs. And he wants to run it all the way back, reverse Viking, which I love, and that Waystar acquires Gojo, and that he'd be bigger than his dad ever was. And this is where Frank said, what about Roman and Shiv? He's like, I love them, but I'm not in love with them. This got me very excited as a Kendall stan. But again, this could totally crash and burn and just blow up in Ken's face, but he's going for the home run here, and I love that. I think that's so Kendall and is just interesting. And it could be something where he does win business-wise, but something tragic happens here with his family, or he's just not happy in the day. I can totally see that too. It's going to be interesting. I love the tension between Ken and Matsson in this one scene where he's like, I hear you might need some revenue streams. And then he's like, well, good presentation, meaty predictions on your part. And then Kendall's like, your numbers are exploding, right? Literally unbelievable. That was great. And he gets this great line. He's saying, I think I'm the wave. I thought that was so awesome of Ken. But I did think it was strange how we're supposed to believe that Ebba was going to spill the beans about India to Roman and Kendall off screen, right? Because it really didn't seem like she was going to bite there. So I want to know, why did she bite? I don't know if I was totally believing that would happen. What is she getting out of doing that? I don't like Roman so easily got that information from his inside man about Matsson sending blood to Ebba. It's like this was a big reveal that Shiv knew and information that Shiv knew, and it just kind of downplays how easy he got it. Now, the big best scene and the meatiest moment in this whole episode was when Tom tells Shiv how he's feeling about this gossip in his house, that he's gonna be shit canned, and they just lay all truth about each other. And honestly, I was watching this, they were both, to me, saying the right thing about each other. I was like, yeah, I agree with that, and I agree with that too. It was like all their worst flaws they were pointing out, and I think they were both nailing it. But it got really intense and heavy when he says to her, I think you're maybe not a good person to have children, because we know as the audience that she's pregnant, and she's like, I don't like you, I don't care about you, you don't deserve me, and you never did. And everything came out of that. I'm shocked she didn't mention the baby here too, but I'm sure that's going to come eventually. And it's interesting that Jesse Armstrong said episode 8 has a shocking moment. So I have a feeling, because this next episode is going to be taking place during the election, it's going to have to do with Tom, because he's a big part in that, and something with him and Shiv, because they're really setting up something big here with them, because it's already exploded now, and now I think Tom's going to completely break, because they end the episode with both of them contemplating things, and Shiv's in a terrible position because she was going to play her brother's here, but the person she's siding with is a phony, we're finding out. So what is she going to do now? So something crazy is going to happen between Tom and Shiv, I think, next episode. And then I think the following episode is going to be more of closing out Roman's story, and 10's probably going to be this big overarching with all the siblings, but mainly Kendall, because the show started focusing on Kendall, and I think it's going to wrap that way too. But overall, just as an episode itself, I wasn't crazy about it. Things just felt a little too contrived for my taste for Succession, and it just, honestly, with the regulatory talk with Nate, it just got a little boring to me in the middle patch. Just going to be honest, like I was zoning out 20 minutes in. I think the episode really picked up the last 15 minutes. It was a very strong end of the episode, but this felt more like a season 3 episode to me, where I just wasn't feeling it as much and just got a little too boring. And the humor could have been better. The humor saves a lot of that kind of tedious talk they have to get through in exposition, and I just feel like this didn't have the landing humor as it usually does to keep up with that. So this was just a drop in quality for me for the season as a whole, but it still left me excited for what's to come next. And knowing that the next one's going to be a crazy shocker, I'm sure they're not going to send screeners out. They didn't for episode 3 when the father died, so I think this is going to be another case where it's going to be hush hush. And please just be patient for my review. I'm going to take my time with it, come out with probably a day or two later, so stay tuned for that. But I'm giving this one an 8.3. Still solid again because this is still Succession, and I love that Shiv and Tom scene on the balcony. Very strong, very powerful, and amazing acting, of course, by the two of them. And everything with Kendall here with Frank was really interesting, and him having that tension with Mattson I liked. But some other stuff again just felt like with the Nate stuff going on, just come on, let's move on here. And again, shoehorn scenes like Kendall with his wife, just stuff, even them talking about Marshall, like, are we gonna get payoff? Is there anything that just always fully comes full circle in the show? They kind of drop so much stuff. Just not a fan of that, in my opinion, but that's just me. Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can, and I'll see you next time.